full swing. What a great place to be when the bars closed down inside the city and you were not ready to go home. You could leave the satellite, you could leave Sir John Night Beat and head outside to the county, and they stayed open to 5 o'clock in the morning. So you could go to the Hampton House and stay open to 5 o'clock in the morning. We didn't worry about being robbed. We didn't lock our doors on our cars. We just went to have fun. And most of the middle class people worked, and as a result of that, they couldn't get to the happy hour at the beginning of the evening, but they could get there at 11 o'clock and always go on out to the Hampton House. And at the Hampton House, it was sort of like our country club for the inner city, because most of the people, if not all of the people who were visible at the Hampton House, were part of the black middle class intelligentsia. What I liked about the Hampton House is that you could dance, and I was a dancer, and that was the only black place in town where you could dance. The rest of the places you normally had to go and listen to other folks perform. But at the Hampton House, Eric Knight and the others were playing every night, and they knew what to play, and we could jitterbug and have a great evening all night long. Aside from that, you were also dealing with the folks in the community who had the wherewithal to be part of what you were trying to do to bring about change. So it was a great place for me to go. I could dance, but I could also talk to all of the important black people that I needed to rally to get things done in Miami. Well, the most important thing for me at the Hampton House was when Malcolm came down to convert Muhammad to the Nation of Islam. People never talk about that. I think that's more significant than Martin swimming in the pool. You know, Malcolm came down for an express purpose when Muhammad was going to fight Sonny Liston in that great fight, and he stayed at the Hampton House, next door to a DJ named Butterball. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, Butterball lived in 25 and Malcolm lived in 26. I know this because Malcolm was meeting with Muhammad Ali's attorney, whose name was Henry Arrington, and Henry Arrington was my friend, and I went with Henry Arrington to make sure that Malcolm was checked in to the Hampton House. I think that's really more significant, as I think about it, than a picture of Martin swimming in the pool.
That's what the Hampton House is all about. I mean, when you talk about its role during the civil rights movement during the 50s and 60s, it was a place where Dr. King could come and relax and have some fun, sit around the pool, right? It was a place where Malcolm X and Cassius Clay, before it became Muhammad Ali, could come and, take a load off. We tend to think of them explicitly as these serious leaders who tackled big problems and overcame them, but it's here at the Hampton House where you'd find that those important historical figures would have a place of solace, a place to relax, a place to be themselves.
I grew up in this neighborhood, and I can remember one of my earliest memories of the Hampton House, and I don't know if it was my budding aspect to becoming an architect, but you can imagine that in this neighborhood there weren't many swimming pools. And I remember the experience because, right here is a street, and it was always a very busy traffic street. And when you entered into the Hampton House, you would go through sort of almost like a tropical garden at the entrance. And then when you passed that garden space, if you turned to one side, you got this vision of this beautiful blue pool. And as an architect, I just remember that. And that was something that always, is in my mind in terms of remembering, the Hampton House from my childhood.
My folks did not really go to nightclubs, even though we lived right there on 2nd Avenue across from the Lyric Theater. And I didn't know that when I started with the Lyric Theater. Because we had moved to Brownsville so early that I really wasn't aware of the Lyric. And so when we got to Brownsville, it was a bedroom community for us. We would sleep here and eat here. but all of our activities, school and church, because Overtown was in fact self-contained because of segregation. That's where we conducted all of our events. The Hampton House was a place that we passed by. It did not have the best reputation at the very beginning. I guess you have heard that. You haven't heard that, okay. Especially with the apartments in the back. Yeah, no. So, I knew that there were acts going on and all of that. It was well known for the golf tournaments that they had, especially in February. And so black celebrities would come here, of course, and black golf advocates would come for the tournaments. There were family outings here, celebrities in and out. And so for church people, as we were, this was not a place to come. The Hampton House started now really in the 50s and 60s. So segregation, traditional segregation as we know it, was ending. And the places in Overtown were beginning to fold, and they were beginning to talk about bringing the highway through, and people who could get out did. And it was at that time that the Hampton House started growing, and people started coming.
I was married to Ricky Thomas. He's not deceased, but that's my connection with the Hampton House. He was a musician. He played bass, violin, the big upright bass. But there are not a whole lot of hanging around the Hampton House, but I know a lot of stars and stuff come here and visit and stay, and I met them through my husband. I just think about some of the stories. There was a fellow named Bill White, very distinguished young man in the community. He's deceased also. But he used to have a boat, a big, pretty boat, and he would wash that boat and shine it up and put on his white, and put on his cap like a cap, and he'd pull it up in front of the Hampton House and stand right there and smile. Yeah, that was so funny to me. And I used to like to dance in the Hampton House. Bill White was a very good dancer. First time I heard about Hampton House, I was a teenager in high school. My older brothers and sisters talked about the Hampton House. I couldn't wait to get old enough to go to the Hampton House. I had gone away to college and come back, and I was finally old enough to go to the Hampton House. It was a treat to come in here. Because like I said, I was too young when they were coming. But it was just something great in the community. Hampton House, oh. And back in the 60s, I can remember when I met my husband, the Markowitz owned the Hampton House, and they were going to sponsor our wedding here in the Hampton House. And I can't remember at this moment what happened, why I wasn't here in Hampton House, because my husband loved the Hampton House. I don't care where he was, he had to come to the Hampton House every night of his life. He had to come to the Hampton House before he came home. But we didn't have the wedding here, but it was supposed to be here. But like I said, I don't remember exactly what happened.
We moved back to Liberty City and lived there maybe a couple of years, and moved back to Brownsville in the home that I live in now. And we moved there in 1957. So I know a lot about the Hampton House. Now, we grew up in a time of segregation. We could not go to the white nightclubs. So we had our favorite spots, Sir John, Mary Elizabeth, and the Hampton House, which was one of the latest. And so, of course, we took pride in it. We enjoyed coming. It was our thing, our places of entertainment. Now, at that time, because of segregation, many of the stars, she mentioned some of them, but if you were black, you could entertain on Miami Beach, but you could not sleep over. So the stars would come and they would work in the nightclubs on the beach and then come back to our side for the night. So sometimes we would just get free entertainment because they would come back and do some entertainment before they went up to go to bed. So that way we did get a chance to see many of the big black stars. But my main connection here is, oh, let me say this. I have a sister who now lives in St. Paul, Minnesota. But when she got married here, her husband wanted to stay here at the Hampton house. So I can just about point to the room up there where they spent their honeymoon.
My mom was like way more surprised than I was. Like she said to me, "Oh my goodness, Renee, we're walking the same way MLK did." I was like, "I'm surprised too, Mom."
Did I ever visit the Hampton house? I saw it built. I saw it when it was built. This was a rock pit. And when they built this rock pit, it took them about, I don't know, about 2-3 years to build this, fill it in, put the piling in, and they had a project behind the Hampton house. They built the Hampton house. And the rest of it was back to 29th Avenue was apartments. So when they finished the apartments, they stayed there, and then they decided to close the apartments. In fact, there was no livable. They had to close it. And then they had to close the Hampton house because it was sinking. All this was sinking now. That was in the 60s and 70s when the Hampton house was lively, because the bands used to come here to play, to stay and go over on the beach and play at the clubs over there because they couldn't stay on the beach. Mm-hmm. And you know why they couldn't stay on the beach, so we won't go into that. But all the bands stayed here. Sammy Davis Jr. and Martin Luther King and all of them. Duke Ellington, I remember all of them.
Yes, when it was open as a hotel, yes. But what happened was that my family had a business down the street. We ran a grocery business, and we opened 7 days a week. And I had to deliver groceries here to our customers. I did not get a chance to patronize the nightclub because my father taught us against drinking. Drinking was a no-no. So liquor and smoking, that was a no-no. We couldn't do that. So I couldn't come in the club here, but I did come here to deliver groceries to our customers. Many of them who came here came to my father's store, which is on the corner of Northwest 49th Street from here. This is, I think, 41st Street here. And they would come down there, we visited. We saw Muhammad Ali, we saw Dr. Martin Luther King, Dr. Rapp, David Abernathy, and others who came. Sammy Davis was here in the community, we saw them. But again, I didn't get a chance to come here because my father was against us going in nightclubs, smoking, no drinking. Well, they were nice people. Someone usually brought them in, and my father would give to Martin Luther King and Dr. Ralph David Abernathy. He would give them T-bone steaks for them and their families when they came. So we were always glad to see them. And of course, Muhammad Ali, who stayed here and came here, also lived not too far away from here on 46th Street, further to the east out there. So he came in too, and we got a chance to see them. But again, I didn't get a chance to take part in all of the goodies that took place here at the Hampton House.
I have a younger brother, and he had a band. He's 10 years younger than I am. He had a band way back in the day, and about 4 of them, and they used to come in here and play in the club at night, but they were kind of underage, but nobody knew it. But they used to come in, his little band used to come and play in the club.